All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to the Cleaning Hustle podcast. We are super excited that you're here today. We're looking forward to an amazing podcast with an amazing guest. Lexi, would you like to introduce our guest?
Yes, we have Mr. Zach Jackson here.
Hello. How is everybody today?
Woo, good.
Yay.
Yeah.
All right, Zach. So
and my socks.
All right. So tell us what you do, what your current state of employment is, and kind of give us a brief description of your background.
Yeah, so been with the Integrity Facility for 4 years, a little over 4 years now, gratefully. And I'm the operations manager and sales for the Louisiana area, South Arkansas, and some East Texas. And my job is making customers happy, making sure that we're over exceeding our clients' expectations with janitorial and a comfortable building to do their environment and work within. That's my gist. Have I come from this industry? Absolutely not. I came from the service industry, so I think that has a little bit of desire when it comes to trying to please our clients and make sure that I know what a clean situation is versus a mediocre or something like that. But as I tell people, coming from restaurants, I mean, you don't go. A lot of people don't go eat at restaurants and greasy spoons, sure, but they don't go eat at the restaurants where they're not so clean. You walk inside and you go to the restroom, you're like, what's the kitchen look like? So when I came to this industry, I was like, when talking to you, I was like, I bet I could do this. And getting into it, it's very similar in that context when you walk into a building such as a doctor's office or a medical facility or something like that. When you walk down, and I tell my ICs this, and not to get too far into our podcast here, but I tell a lot of our independent contractors when they go into a building and I walk within them, or, I walk through with them, when you're in a exam room, sit down in the chair and see what you see. And, when you're sitting there and as a prospective client, or a patient, you look in the corners, you look at the ceiling, and if it's dirty, you might go find another doctor, or you might not feel confident with the advice that doctor's giving you. But if you walk into their a facility and you feel comfortable and, the people are happy and greeting to you, you walk into the exam room and it's very clean, it gives a experience rather than just the doctor, giving you some advice. And I think that kind of played into the service industry where, we're selling an experience. And I know that when I say janitorial and experience, people are like, what in the heck is this guy talking about? But again, it's all about perspective, and it's all about as a customer and as a consumer, when you walk in somewhere, do you feel comfortable because it's clean in there? And if you don't, a lot of times people will leave. And so that's what I do in the Shreveport, South Arkansas, and East Texas area.
Nice. Very good. Very good.
Why don't you tell us how you met Dan and how you came to Integrity? Yeah,
that's an awesome question. I'm a faith believer and I'm a man of faith. I don't want to say and push God on anybody, but I definitely believe it was God that brought me here, because I never, ever thought I would be, it was the furthest thing in my mind, janitorial. It wasn't even on the radar. And, when I saw that, because I had owned a Torchy's Tacos. I don't know if anybody knows what Torchy's Tacos is. I'm sure you are if you're Texas, you're listening around, but I was a franchisee for Torchy's Tacos, and I thought that was going to be the end all of my career. I was going to have a few of those and live happily ever after. Well, long story short, about 2 years into that, the venture capitalist company came in and offered Torchy's a huge amount of money to essentially walk away. And he didn't walk away, but he gave up majority. So he let all the franchisees, we came in on Tuesday, like 1:00 in the afternoon. And everybody knew, like, this was not a time, it's basically lunch. And they're calling everybody, all these franchisees in, and we were like, something's up. And he came in and he was crying. He's like, hey, I'm giving up, my majority share, so you guys can deal with them now. And they said, hey, we're going to ring the towel, and we're going to be, return on investment is going to be very, very strong focused. And that's going to be, essentially cutting down on what the premise of Torchy's was built on, and that was on customer service and food quality. So over a year's time, Probably 75% of the franchisees fell off. I fell off quick. I was like, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. So got out of that, and I was, searching and didn't really know what I was searching for. I know that I'm confident in my abilities, and I was very, very adept with service industry. So, and restaurants, I've lost 80 pounds, but if you saw me before, you would have known that I love food. I'm a foodie, so
I have actually seen some of those pictures.
Yeah, so I'm a foodie, and I looked like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man because I love food, and I still love food, but I love it in incremental amounts now, which is good. So I was looking, and lo and behold, I was going through some different recruiters, and doing the Indeed thing. And one day a recruiter called and said, hey, would you like to, here's the opportunity. Would you like to look into it? And I looked about it and I thought, that's not for me, and I prayed about it, and, something told me that this is where I should be. And I didn't believe it at the time. I thought, I'll go talk to him and see, let's see. Cause I'm open, God, to hearing what your opportunities you have for my life. And I don't want to, go against what your will for my life is. So I said, hey, let's try it out. Gave him a call, and I talked to Dan and the gentleman that he had at the position running the place at that point. And I don't know if I necessarily hit it off with him very well, but when I met Dan, it was just a different, I don't know, man. It was it's a weird way of putting a perception of somebody when you meet them, and then when you get to know them a little bit. And the conversation, we met at a coffee shop in Shreveport. We met at the office, and then we walked down to the coffee shop, and we had probably, 30, 45 minute conversation. And he told me what you do, and what the job responsibilities are. I felt confident I could do it, and told him, I know I can do this, give me an opportunity and I'll show you. And that's kind of how we left it. And I think it was maybe a good month later that we actually connected with the gentleman. His name was Art, that he had called me up and said, hey, I think we're going to go through, or, we have a possibility for that opportunity to be open here. You're one of the final candidates. Would you like to pursue it? And I said, yeah, absolutely. And met with Dan again, and, we made some negotiations and things worked out. And that's how I landed here. But how I stayed here is, enjoying what I do. And I know that that's, for some people listening, maybe they're like, janitorial, you enjoy what you do. I do. And it's strange because, you get a lot of flack, and you're the last person in a building, oftentimes, not specifically me, but I mean, our cleaners are last people in the buildings, and we get a lot of the flack for whatever's wrong in that building in the morning that may not be correct. So, my identity when I first got here was, how can we make sure that, being that we're that last person in the building, that we can make sure that that first person in the building comes in and says, wow, whoever those last people in the building were, did a great job. This place looks nice. And it took, several years of trying to figure it out. But I think that I've done a, mediocre job, if not good job, of trying to figure it out and do a good job of it. But that's how I'm here. And I really enjoy it.
Amazing. Well, that's good. That's a great segue into our questions. So, because I know you and I know your background, I really wanted this podcast to kind of be focused on our crews, kind of processes with our crews. And so the first question that I have for you today is, what do you see as the biggest operational mistake that some of our entry-level ICs make?
100%, I think on the top of my list is, they see a gold bar and they just want to go jump all over it and not really realize what it entails to get that gold bar. And I know that maybe happens in many aspects of life, but when you're getting into, this, you have to be committed to it, and you have to understand that in the subcontracting model that we work within, that there's a relationship, and it's a triangle relationship between contractor, subcontractor, and the client. And at the end of the day, we are trying to, all three of us should be on the same team, making that client's expectation, the paramount focus of what we're doing when we're inside that building. And I think a lot of the times when people get in first involved with cleaning, they say, oh man, it's a quick way to get out there and make some money and I can build this business, but they want to go in and they want to trash and dash and they don't want to take any concerted effort on trying to see what the full scope of work is and what they need to do in order to exceed that client's expectations so that we can build business and that they can build business with us. I think that's, the Achilles heel when I first meet a lot of them, because they want to get in here, they want to sign paperwork, they want to get signed up and they want to get in and just give me some buildings, I'm going to go in there and clean. And I don't think they really have the, like I said, commitment of knowing what's involved before they get involved.
Yeah, good. Have you seen a situation like with some crews, they might think something that really matters operationally, but in reality it doesn't matter?
I don't know if I would say it doesn't matter, but operationally, I
Go ahead.
Oh, I didn't know you had questions back there. Operationally, I think that on the kind of to reverse engineer what that question that you just said, because a lot of times I think people, they don't get involved operationally and know exactly what they should be doing. So they might forget things as they go through the cleaning process. And instead of knowing or having a scope of work and them abiding by each little, check mark and checking boxes as they go through it, they go through and they just feel like they do what they need to do or what they feel is clean. And they might not do the extended scope of a work that we feel is, I don't want to say mandatory, but it's it's the bar of where we should start to clean upwards, not just, clean to a certain level and feel like we've done what we've done and do the minimum and get out. We feel like we've done what we need to do and we've exceeded the expectations of the client.
Nice.
For sure. So, for someone like me who's not in operations at all, I couldn't tell you the left hand from the right hand in the operations world. How would you identify a good cleaner versus someone won't last very long?
Yeah, I think this is a prime example of a situation that Dan and I went through not too long ago in Denver. And we met a young lady, Erica was her name, and she's still working for us. But on first conversation with her, it's not often that happens because I like to have a few different conversations and eyes on different people when we talk to them to try and, and even in our recruiting process, how we have levels of filters to, make sure that we're all identifying whether this person will work or not. But first and foremost is being communicative and being open and I don't want to say amiable, but, moldable to people's suggestions and being able to be a sponge and want to learn. If you already know everything in this industry, then why are you coming to us? You probably have your own contracts wherever you are, or you're doing okay, or you're complacent with what you're doing. But if you're wanting to grow and you're wanting to see somebody who's, tried and true, done this for 25, 30 years and has been successful at it and can, expand with growth, then I believe that's what would bring you to us, and that you would make a good candidate for a subcontractor with IFS.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say the number one reason crews quit a job, and how do you prevent that?
I tell you, in my experience, it's been either burnout from being overloaded and them not having the resources in order to do the job that they've jumped in to do. And that's a big thing because, a lot of times they'll start off small as, they don't have a huge balance sheet. So they start off small with whether it is husband, wife, friends, whatever it is. And they'll get involved and they'll start getting some buildings and then they'll get some more buildings. And then, they're just stretched so thin that, it's like, what do we do now? Do I just, dump it, or do I just do a mediocre job and start losing buildings, which is essentially what I see people fall into? Or do I do like one of mine in Shreveport, Bossier area, that they came to us and they said, I wanted to grow with you. And I said, okay. So when I started giving them buildings and we need some more buildings, I said, okay, where's our resources at for those buildings? How are you training your people, your crews that are at night, in order to, make sure that they're being more efficient so that they're not spending, and again, they're not spending the 2 hours in a building in the night that they are, or they currently are, where they could spend an hour, right? So if you go through a building and, you say you're throwing trash, you have somebody doing yo-yos throughout that. I call them yo-yos. They get a brew barrel, whatever it is, and they're going back and forth. They go, throw a trash, and then they'll go throw it, and they'll go back to a carriage or something like that and throw it in there, and then to another office and back in there. Well, you're wasting time the whole time going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So I think, to answer your question better, to go back to that, is that I think it's burnout from not being very knowledgeable about learning their industry and the experience, and learning from their experience in the industry. Because if you go through a building and clean it every single night and do the same thing every single night, eventually you're going to some things are going to fall off here and there. But if you do the same thing every single night, the same exact way, most of the time it's going to take you about the same time, right? But if you try to think, hey, time is money, and I can still do a quality job and over exceed expectations by getting better at what I'm doing, then you're going to, broaden the opportunity for growth and, more business down the road. And I think that that's what I see a lot, is that people get overwhelmed because they don't know what that threshold of how many buildings and resources I need to divvy up and do the buildings that I have. And that's where I've seen people fall off, especially independents.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and that kind of segues into, you kind of sort of answered our next question, but how do you train for consistency across multiple sites? Like you said, they tend to get themselves built up, then they start to taper off. Like if I was your IC, what advice would you give me as far as the consistency across? Like if I have 1 building to 10 buildings, it's going to be very consistent across all those buildings.
My first thing would say top to bottom cleaning, and to have a system when you go into a building of how you're going to go through and clean that building, because every floor plan that you walk into is different. They're all unique, and they all take a different context of time to do them. But if you don't have a beginning system to get in and knowing, hey, when I go in there, I'm going to start dusting first, and if you go in there and start vacuuming first, once you dust, you're going to have to vacuum again. So I think that that's the main thing, that when I get ICs that have very little or no experience in this industry, they feel like cleaning at home is what they need to do inside this building, and it's going to be, the same way. Everything's going to turn out right. But there's a certain process in the commercial janitorial industry that is standard, and that's top-down cleaning. And if you don't know top-down cleaning, you got to learn that really, really quick and teach everybody on your team that same type of cleaning techniques in order to be successful and consistent throughout the buildings that you're doing.
Very good. So when you start to see a company grow, what do you think is the first thing that breaks? Let's say they have 5 accounts and they're working their way to 20, and then you start to see, this person is falling apart. What's a typical thing that you might see in that situation?
Quality of service. By all means, it's going to be because they're going to start rushing through, or, they're going to have their crews start rushing through because they got to get to the next building, and quality of service is going to decline. And you're going to you're going to identify that by talking to your clients, as well as you're probably more than likely going to have concerns coming in through, whether it be through the help desk or directly to your operations manager, or whatever that looks like in your company.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right.
So if you have an IC or a crew and they want to scale with you, what would you say they need to have in place before they start scaling?
A awesome work ethic, honesty, and adaptability. This industry, which is really awesome for a lot of people who are wanting to or thinking about getting into it, is that you don't have to have a huge balance sheet to get into it. You have to have determination, and you have to have a great work ethic, and you have to have the the want to actually go out there and exceed people's expectations. And with that, you'll grow business. But if you don't have those beginning to, and maybe just not this industry, but a lot of them, if you don't have that determination to get out there and see that you maybe don't know what these other people know that you're getting into this industry with, I wanted to, when I first got in here, I started reading periodicals about janitorial. I started asking different people from different companies about things, get to know your industry. And in doing so, you're going to not only, teach yourself about the industry and about what it takes, but you're going to learn how to be more efficient and more consistent throughout the buildings that you're cleaning.
Yeah.
For sure. And, you've talked a lot about consistency and client expectations and things like that. But as we all know, clients can be their own issue in themselves. And, they cancel for a lot of reasons that have to do away from the cleaning. What would you say some of those top reasons you see them canceling even when the cleaning is good?
Man, there's a whole gamut of those, but I would say the main thing that I see people canceling for is either not hearing from anybody or seeing anybody, so it's just throwing darts if they hit the help desk or an operations manager or whatever. They never hear from anybody, they never see anybody, so their concerns are not being addressed. And, just common, I want to say unthoughtful mistakes, because when you have the right crews and the right people in the buildings and they're trained correctly in the buildings about how to go about the process of cleaning the building, you're not going to fall into the cracks of some of these common mistakes, such as a young lady of mine thought it was, she was inside the building, cleaned the building, and saw a notepad, and it was I believe it was a receipt stack, and she wrote on there, something about God is good. Well, in her eyes, I'm sure at the moment, it sounded like a good idea, and maybe heard the thought in her mind. She was having a good experience, a good emotion. Hey, God is good. Well, the client didn't see it quite like that. So there's little things that can cause rifts with clients. And I think if you can, mitigate those to the best of your possibility, and again, that goes through training your people who are in the buildings at night and having the right crews inside the buildings. If you have the right people inside the buildings and they are trained correctly, you won't fall into those. But you see these little bitty training misconceptions that people get caught up in, and it's amazing what clients can come in and get frustrated from. And again, those are isolated. I mean, if you have a great enough, the operations manager or just the company in general has a great enough relationship with that client, that stands to be a pillar of trying to keep that relationship even when those little mistakes are made. And a lot of buildings nowadays, I would say, probably majority of the buildings nowadays have cameras, right? So everybody, and I tell people when my ICs, when I'm walking through there, hey, be aware when you're inside the building, we do our job, we do it well. You put your earphones on, whatever, you get in the groove, and, you have a good time in there and enjoy it, But we don't go through people's stuff. We don't go, whatever's on somebody's desk is on their desk, and you leave it there. You don't even think about what's on there or why it's there. But that's the biggest hurdle that I've seen, is that people, they just make common little mistakes,
Mm-hmm.
So how often, at IFS we have inspection programs and things like that, but how often do you proactively communicate with the clients?
Well, gratefully, I have a lot of clients that, they have my work number, my personal number, text, smoke mail, whatever. I mean,
smoke mail,
smoke messages.
You pigeons.
Exactly. Humming pigeons. I think that's the nature of the relationship building that goes into this industry as well as many others, is that when clients feel confident with the ability of your company and they are comforted in knowing that they can call you or text you or email you. And a lot of times I want to, I respond and, let them know what the situation is and how we're going to resolve it. A lot of times they won't even respond. They just know that they have the confidence that if they hit me up, that's the younger term, right? Hit me up, HMU. If they hit me up, that things are going to get taken care of, and they feel confident that it's going to get taken care of. And I want to hear about it. And a couple of weeks later, they'll, hey, how you doing? I got this concern, So when you get to that level of being able to have that relationship where the client feels comfortable enough to come directly to you and has confidence in you being able to, fix whatever the concern that they have is, that's a great place to be as a company.
Yeah. Yeah. What's your process for handling complaints?
Well, obviously, I attentively listen with an open ear, and I listen more than I talk, and that's my first mode of action. Is I want to hear, exactly what the concern is and the validity behind it. Because I think that I've seen some issues with people creating rifts with clients when they go in and they want to not actively listen. They want to have the answer for what that person's going to ask them before they even ask it, or the concern that they have, Well, this toilet was brown. Oh, well, it's the hard water. I know what it is, before they even say, yeah, understood, hard water. No problem. We have some acid we'll put in there. We'll get it taken care of for you, okay? And instead, they want to act as though, the concern is not valid. Whatever concern any client has for us, it's valid in my opinion, right? So, again, it could be as much as hard water stains to, we missed a trash can on, office 3 on floor 5 or whatever, a little bitty office. It's valid, and we will get it taken care of and resolved. But I think the biggest mistake is trying to go to clients or talk to clients and not openly, actively listen to them and, take their concerns as valid, and rather trying to be combative towards it or be defensive against it. Again, if I came to you with a concern, hopefully I know that you would, damn it. Lexi, I don't know about you.
We don't know about you, Lexi.
You guys would listen with an open ear and be attentive to what my concern is. And I think that's, you get out and you put out what you want to get in. And I want to, give out to our clients what I would have them want to, if I was in that same situation and the roles were reversed, for them to do for me. So, yeah, I think active listening and resolution is 2 key things.
Good.
So with all of that being said, what do you think is one simple thing that people can do out there that improves retention?
Actively have the relationship with your clients and with your ICs, and make sure that you're not only visiting your clients, but you're making a concerted effort to see if they have concerns. Because the worst concern that you can have, and the person that's going to drop you, is that the person that you don't hear from because they're either too tired of complaining, or they think that on the other side of that complaint, it's not going to get resolved, so why even bring it to anybody, right? Is being able to make sure that you're in front of those customers and make sure that they are or make sure that they're aware that if there are concerns and issues, that they bring them to you, and if they don't, that they feel comfortable bringing them to you, the help desk, whoever it may be. Because the people that you don't hear from are more likely the ones that they're going to fall off, the ones that where things are fine, or I haven't seen this guy in a year. You're just going to get a 30-day notice and be ghosted, one or the other. But I think being in front of people and understanding concerns and making sure that there are open concerns, and being inquisitive with the clients, not just, hey, how's the weather? Hey, how's the cleaning?
Yeah.
Well, we're at the rapid fire segment. Do you want to do it?
Sure.
All right, do it.
You can't go long, Zach. I know you.
Well, thank you. Because yes, and if I am,
right.
just kind of
one word answers.
Yeah, one word answer
Gotcha.
only. You ready?
I'm ready.
What is one tool every janitorial company should use?
One tool, huh? Boy, you hit me with the weird one out of the gate. One tool that a cleaning company should use. I mean, If it was going to be me, it would be a chemical called Quick Clean, because Quick Clean is what we clean our floors, or what I suggest all of our ICs clean their floors with. And I've used a lot of different stuff, and it's perfect. It doesn't use. I mean, you can use just a little. It doesn't leave mop marks. It doesn't leave streaks, and it's relatively inexpensive.
Awesome. Biggest red flag when taking on a new client?
Adaptability.
Best way to reduce complaints?
Present.
Most overrated piece of equipment?
Pumice stick.
I agree with that. Like half the people in the world don't even know how to use it.
Yeah, exactly. And then they end up just scarring up the bottom of the toilet, even worse.
I know, it's the worst. It's worse.
Right. Last one. One habit that makes cleaners 10 times better.
Work ethic.
Awesome. We only went long on one of those, so you did great.
You know, after you said that and I started going on, I was like, dude, you just stuck
you went past
your
the
foot in your mouth. Yeah.
Well, Zach, do you have any closing thoughts for our listeners, or any final things you want to say that would help someone in the cleaning industry?
You know, I would say just, encourage anybody that's out there, do your research on the industry, but know as well that, if you're looking to get into a business that maybe you don't have a whole lot of money to get into it, but you have a great sense of work ethic, you have some resources or a team that you can work with. This is an industry that, it's growing year over year and has for the last, 35, 40 years. I mean, somebody has to have their buildings cleaned, and, it's got to be cleaned by somebody. And when you work within a subcontracting model like ours, I mean, you've been doing it for 30 years, and there's growth here. And I hope that you would be able to, get on with a company like us if you're in our industry. I mean, if you're in our area, even if you're not, if you're in an isolated area, get in touch with us, because we'd love to have you on board. We have buildings coming up throughout the nation, and there's opportunity here. But we want the best of the best, and I don't say that in a joking way. If you're not somebody who's consistent, has a great work ethic, and wants to grow, you're probably not a good fit for us. But if you're somebody who sees an opportunity and has a great work ethic and wants to build a business, working with IFS is a great way to make that happen.
Yeah, amazing. I agree 100%. You have any closing thoughts, Lexi?
Nope. It was great to have you on.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for inviting me in, and this is an awesome studio. And thank you, Matthew, for the production.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining the Cleaning Hustle podcast. We appreciate you listening. As always, like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next episode.